patients are down. The government is silent. We don't know who or what is causing this.
Nothing happened the way it was supposed to happen.
7
billion people on Earth when the infection hit.
There was so much chaos after the outbreak.
Nothing happened the way it was supposed to happen. I'm a survivor living in New York City.
I don't want to shoot you!
God didn't do this. We did.
Welcome to another world after coronavirus. I am really happy and honored for this special episode because there is a special guest joining us today, and that special guest is not only mine but a hero of many generations. Both of us are unfortunately in self-isolation, so this is also a very special occasion. But without further introduction, I think most of you who are watching this know who is Noam Chomsky, and I'm so glad that Noam is joining us today. Hello Noam, could you just tell us where are you? Are you already in self-isolation, and for how long?
Well, I'm in Tucson, Arizona, in self-isolation for the time.
So you were born in 1928, and you wrote your first essay, as far as I know, when you were only 10 years old, which was an essay on the Spanish Civil War, actually just after the fall of Barcelona. So that was 1938, which looks very far away for my generation. You survived the Second World War, Hiroshima. I mean, you were a witness to Hiroshima. You were a witness to many very big, important political, historic events, from the Vietnam War to the oil crisis, to the fall of the Berlin Wall. Before that, you were a witness to Chernobyl. After that, in the 90s, you were a witness to a historical moment which was leading to 9/11, which was also a global event. And most recently, I mean, I'm trying to really shorten a long history and a lifetime of someone like you, but the most recent event was the financial crash of 2007 and 2008. So in this background of such a rich life and being a witness and also an actor in these major historical processes, how do you look at the current coronavirus crisis? Is it an unprecedented historical event? Is it something which surprised you? And how do you look at it? That would be my question.
Well, I should say that my earliest memories, which are haunting me now, are from the 1930s, The article that you mentioned on the fall of Barcelona was actually mainly about the apparently inexorable spread of the fascist plague all over Europe, and where it was going to end. I much later discovered when internal documents came out that the analysts of the US government at the time and in the following years expected that the war would end they knew a war was coming, that a war would end with the world divided into a US dominated region and a German dominated region. So my childhood fears were not entirely out of place. And those memories come back now. I can recall when I was a young child, listening to Hitler's Nuremberg rallies over the radio. I couldn't understand the words, but you could easily understand the moods and the threat and so on. And I have to say, when I listen to Donald Trump's rallies today, it resonates. It's not that he's a fascist. He doesn't have that much of an ideology. He's a sociopath, but an individual concerned with himself. But the mood and the fear is similar. And the idea that the fate of the country and the world is in the hands of a sociopathic buffoon is shocking. The coronavirus is serious enough, but it's worth recalling that there's a much greater horror approaching. We are racing to the edge of disaster, far worse than anything that's happened in human history. And Donald Trump and his minions are in the lead in racing to the abyss. In fact, there are two immense threats that we're facing. One is the growing threat of nuclear war, which has exacerbated by tearing what's left of the arms control regime. And the other, of course, is the growing threat of global warming. Both threats can be dealt with, but there isn't a lot of time. And the coronavirus is a horrible plague, can have terrifying consequences, but there will be recovery. The others, there won't be recovery. It's finished. If we don't deal with them, we're done. And so the childhood memories are coming back to haunt me, but different dimension. Threat of nuclear war, we can get a sense of where the world really is by looking to this January. As I'm sure you know, every year the doomsday clock is set with the minute hand a certain distance from midnight, which means termination. Ever since Trump was elected, the minute hand has been moving closer and closer to midnight. Last year was 2 minutes to midnight, the highest, matching the highest it ever reached. This year, the analysts dispensed with minutes, started to move to seconds, 100 seconds to midnight. That's the closest it's ever been, citing three things: the threat of nuclear war, threat of global warming, and the deterioration of democracy, which doesn't quite belong until you think about it, but it does, because that's the one hope that we have for overcoming the crisis. An informed, involved public taking control of their fate. If that doesn't happen, we're doomed. If we're leaving our fate to sociopathic buffoons, we're finished. And that's coming close. Trump is the worst, but that's because of US power, which is overwhelming. People talk about US decline, but you just look at the world, you don't see that. When the US imposes sanctions, murderers, devastating sanctions. It's the only country that can do that. Everyone has to follow. Europe may not like, in fact, sanctions on Iran, but they have to follow. They have to follow the master, or else they're kicked out of the international financial system. Now, that's not a law of nature. It's a decision in Europe to be subordinate to the master in Washington. Other countries don't even have the choice. Back to the coronavirus, one of the most shocking, harsh aspects of it is the use of sanctions to maximize the pain, perfectly consciously. Iran has its own enormous internal problems, but by the stranglehold of tightening sanctions, which are consciously designed openly to make the suffer and suffer bitterly now. Cuba has been suffering from it from the moment that it gained independence, but it's astonishing that they've survived, but they stay resilient. And one of the most ironic elements of today's coronavirus crisis is that Cuba is helping Europe. I mean, this is so shocking that you don't know how to describe it. Germany can't help Greece, but Cuba can help European countries. If you stop to think about what that means of all our civil words fail, just as when you see thousands of people dying in the Mediterranean, fleeing from countries that Europe has devastated for centuries and being sent to the deaths in the Mediterranean, you don't know what words to use. The crisis, the civilizational crisis of the West at this point is devastating to think about. And it does bring up childhood memories of listening to Hitler raving on the radio to raucous crowds adoring him at the Nuremberg rallies. You begin to wonder, is this species even viable?
You mentioned the crisis of democracy. At this moment, I think we find ourselves also in a historically unprecedented situation, in the sense that almost 2 billion people, that's a figure I found today, are in one or the other way confined at home, whether it is isolation, self-isolation, or quarantine. Almost 2 billion people in the world are at home, if they're lucky enough to have a home. At the same time, what we can witness is that Europe, but also other countries, closed their borders, not only internal ones, but outer borders. There is a state of exception in all the countries we can think of, which means curfew in many countries, such as France, Serbia, Spain, Italy, and other countries, army on the streets. And what I want to ask you as a linguist is the language which is now circulating around. If you listen not just to Donald Trump, if you listen to Macron, also some other European politicians, you will constantly hear that they speak about war. And even the media speak about doctors who are on the first front line. And the virus is called an enemy, which reminded me, of course, also not to childhood memories, luckily, but a book which was written at that time, Victor Klemperer, Lingua Tertii Imperii, the book which is a book about the language of the Third Reich, and in which way, through language, the ideology was imposed. So from your perspective, what does this discourse about war tell us? And why do they present a virus as an enemy? Is it just to legitimize the new state of exception, or is there something deeper in this discourse?
In this case, I don't protect the rhetoric, but I think it's not exaggerated. It has some significance. the meaning is that if we want to deal with the crisis, we have to move to something like wartime mobilization. So if you think of, take a rich country like the United States, it has the resources to overcome the immediate economic crisis. Mobilization for the Second World War led the country into far greater debt than is contemplated today, and was very successful. Mobilization practically quadrupled US manufacturing, ended the Depression, left the country with enormous debt, but a capacity to grow. Now that's a lesson we need, probably not on that scale. It's not like the Second World War, but we need the mentality of a social to try to overcome the short run crisis, which is severe. How severe, we don't can recall the swine flu epidemic in 2009, which originated in the US. It killed a couple 100,000 people in the first. Society recovered from worse, but it has to be dealt with. That's a rich country like the United States. Of those 2 billion people, the majority are in India. What happens for Indian living hand to mouth who's isolated, starves to death? What's going to happen? In a civilized world, the rich countries would be giving assistance to those who are in need instead of strangling them, which is what we're doing, particularly in India, but in much of the world. But the crisis, whether the crisis can be within a country like India, I don't know. Bear in mind that with current tendencies, if they persist, South Asia is going to be unlivable in a few decades. The temperature reached 50 degrees C in Rajasthan this summer, and that's increasing. The water's running out. It could get even worse. There's 2 nuclear powers there who are going to be fighting over reduced water supplies. I mean, the coronavirus is very serious. We can't underestimate it, but we have to remember that it's a fraction, small fraction of major crises that are coming along. They may not disrupt life to the extent that the coronavirus does today, but they will disrupt life to the point of making the species unsurvivable, and not in the very distant future. So we have many problems to deal with. Immediate ones, coronavirus is serious, has to be dealt with, and much larger ones, vastly larger ones, are looming. And there is a civilizational crisis. We have to, it's a time when possibly good side of the coronavirus is it might bring people to think about what kind of a world do we want? Do we want the kind of a world that leads to this? And we should think about the origins of this crisis. Why is there a coronavirus crisis? It's a colossal market failure. It goes right back to the essence of markets, exacerbated by the savage neoliberal intensification of deep social economic problems. It was known for a long time that pandemics are very likely, and it was understood, very well understood, that they are likely to be coronavirus pandemic, slight modifications of the SARS epidemic 15 years ago. Time it was overcome. The viruses were identified, sequenced, vaccines were available, labs around the world could be working right then on developing protection for potential coronavirus pandemics. Why did they do it? The market signals were wrong. The drug companies, we have handed over our fate to private tyrannies called corporations, which are unaccountable to the public, in this case, big pharma, and for them, making new body creams is more profitable than finding a vaccine that'll protect people from total destruction. It would have been possible for the government to step in, going back to wartime mobilization. That's what happened. Polio at the time, I can remember very well, was a terrifying threat. It was ended by the discovery of the Salk vaccine by a government institution set up by the Roosevelt administration. No patents, available to everyone. That could have been done this time, but the neoliberal plague has blocked that. We are living under an ideology for which economists have a good bit of responsibility, so it comes from the corporate sector, an ideology which is typified by Ronald Reagan reading the script handed to by his corporate masters with his sunny smile saying, government is the problem, let's get rid of government, which means let's hand over decisions to private tyrannies that are unaccountable to the public. On the other side of the Atlantic, Thatcher was instructing us that there is a society, just individuals thrown into the market to survive somehow. And furthermore, there is no alternative. The world has been suffering under this years, and it's now at the point where things that could be done, like direct government intervention on the scope of the invention of the Salk vaccine, but that's blocked for ideological reasons coming out of the neoliberal plague. The point is that this coronavirus pandemic could have been prevented. The information was there to prevent, and in fact, it was well known in October 2019, just before the outbreak. There was a large-scale simulation, high-level simulation in the United States, in the world, of a possible pandemic of this kind. Nothing was done. The crisis was then made worse by the, I don't know what word to use, the treachery of the political systems, which didn't pay attention to the information that they were aware of. On December 31st, China informed the World Health Organization of pneumonia-like symptoms with unknown etiology. A week later, some Chinese scientists identified it as a coronavirus. Furthermore, they sequenced it and information to the world. By then, virologists, others who were bothering to read World Health Organization report, knew that they were coronavirus and they knew how to deal with it. Did they do anything? Well, yes, some did. The countries in the China, South Korea, Taiwan, Singapore began to do something. And they have sort of pretty much, it seems, contained at least the first surge of the crisis. In Europe, to some extent, this happened. Germany, which hadn't moved to the just-on-time idiocy of hospital systems under neoliberalism, did have spare diagnostic capacity and was able to act in a highly selfish fashion, not helping others, but for itself at least, to have a reasonable containment. Other countries just ignored it. The worst were the United Kingdom, and the worst of all was the United States, which happens to be led by a psychopathic lunatic who says, one day there's no crisis, it's just like flu. The next day it's a terrible crisis, and I knew it all along. the next day we have to go back to business because I have to win the election. The idea that the world is in these hands is shocking. But the point is that it started with again, a colossal market failure, pointing to fundamental problems in the socioeconomic order, made much worse by the neoliberal plague. And it continues because of the collapse of the kinds of institutional structures that could deal with it if they were functioning. These are topics that we ought to be thinking about seriously and thinking in more depth about, as I said, what kind of world do we want to live in? Will we overcome somehow? There will be options. The options range from installation of highly authoritarian, brutal states, all the way over to radical reconstruction of society on more humane terms concerned with human needs, not private profit. And we should bear in mind that highly authoritarian, vicious states are quite compatible with neoliberalism. In fact, the gurus of neoliberalism, from Mises, Hayek, the rest, were perfectly happy with massive state violence as long as it supported what they called sound economics. We shouldn't forget that neoliberalism has its origins in 1920s Vienna, von Mises' seminar. Von Mises could barely contain his delight in the proto-fascist Austrian state and smashed the labor unions and Austrian social democracy and joined the early proto-fascist government and praised it, praised fascism, in fact, because it was protecting sound economics. When Pinochet installed a murderous, brutal dictatorship in Chile, they loved it. They all flocked there, Milton Friedman, to help out with this marvelous miracle that was bringing sound economic great profit to a foreign investment, small part of the population. So it's not outlandish to think that savage neoliberal system might be reinstalled by self-proclaimed libertarians with a powerful state violence imposing it. That's one, that's one nightmare that might come about, but it's not necessary. There is the possibility that people will organize, become engaged, as many are doing, and bring about a much better world, which will also confront the enormous problems that we're facing right down the road. The problems of nuclear war, which is closer than it's ever been, and the problems of environmental catastrophe from which there is no recovery. Once we've gotten to that stage, it's over. And that's not far in distance unless we act decisively. So it's a critical moment of human history, not just because of the virus, but that should bring us to awareness of the profound flaws, the word flaw is not strong enough, the deep dysfunctional characteristics of the whole socioeconomic system, which has to be changed if there's going to be a survivable future. So this could be a warning sign and a lesson. We have to deal with it today in order to prevent it from exploding, but thinking of its roots and how those roots are going to lead to more crises, worse ones, unless we extirpate right away.
And since we don't have much time, I'll just pose one last question. Yes. So I think many people are interested, and also us who are active in social movements and mobilizations and organized for decades using physical and social closeness between people. But now suddenly we are all getting accustomed to what is now being called social distancing. So my question is, how do you see the future of social resistance in times of social distance? And if this takes a few more months, not to mention maybe a year or two, and we are mainly in self-isolation or at home, what would be your advice to progressives around the world, activists, also intellectuals, students, workers, how to organize in this new situation? And could you perhaps tell us whether you see a hope that instead of going into a global authoritarianism, this open historic situation might go in a radical transformation of the world, which would be green, equal, just, and full of solidarity?
Well, first of all, we should bear in mind that in the past few years, there has been a form of social isolation, which is very damaging. You go into a McDonald's, say, and take a look at a bunch of teenagers sitting around a table having a hamburger. What you see is two conversations going on. One, a sort of shallow discussion among them. Another, the one that each one is having on his cell phone with some remote individual who he's a friend. This is atomized and isolated people to an extraordinary extent. The Thatcher principle, there is no society, has been escalated by the misuse of social media that has turned people into very isolated creatures, especially young people. There are actually universities now in the United States where the sidewalks have plaques on them saying, "Look up," because every kid who's walking around is glued to his cell phone. That's a form of self-induced social isolation, which has been very harmful. We're now in a situation of real social isolation. It has to be overcome by recreating social bonds in whatever way can be done, through need of whatever kind there can be, helping people in need, contacting them, developing organizations, expanding organizations, like 5, getting them to be functional and operative, making plans for the future, bringing people together as you can do in the internet age, to join, to consult, to deliberate, to figure out answers to the problems that they face and work on them, which can be done. It's not face-to-face communication, which for human beings is essential, but going to be deprived of it for a while. You can put it on hold, find other ways, and continue with and in fact extend and deepen the activities carried out. Can be done. It's not going to be easy, but humans have faced worse problems in the past.
Can I pose a question, since we are both in self-isolation?
My dog is trying to get a conversation.
But was that before a parrot? Or do you have a bird as well, or a parrot, or a bird? There was a sound of a bird, yes?
Parrot, but a bilingual parrot. It can say sovereignty to all the people in Portuguese.
Fascinating.
Valeria, my Brazilian.
Great, thanks a lot, Noam.
It has better words of wisdom than we hear from Washington.
Thanks a lot, Noam. I think this is a beautiful ending of this conversation. I hope we will talk soon. We will all stay at home, and we will wait for you and your parrot to tell us when to get out of our apartments and make a revolution.
We're different people. Some people won't wait in line. They'll see a line. Oh God, there is a line. Mexicans won't wait in line. We don't even know what the line's for. Mira la línea, chinga su madre. Go get in line. Go get in line. And once you get in, you let everyone in. Tía, písale, cabrona. They're not gonna get you. Come on. Different people. We're not happy for anybody. A true Latino is never happy when other people do well. Our first instinct is negative. Did you hear Ruben got a job at the hospital? The marihuana? Órale. Pinche marijuana working at the hospital? Shit. I'm gonna call up, watch, hello, hospital? Ruben's a marijuana, over. That way he'll learn. My grandmother, I learned from my grandma. My grandma, 82 years old, everything she says is negative. Everything. Grandma, you hear about Maria? What, that she's pregnant? No, she's getting married. Like I said. With blue eyeshadow. So you can see it, they keep their eyes closed. Are you gonna go to the wedding? Shh. I went to the first three. Nada más puta que la chinga. She got 4 kids getting married in a white dress. Tan loca la cabrona, white dress. No, hombre. A white dress, mira that white dress. She should get married in a white dress with black sleeves. And a hole in the front para acabarle chingar. But tell her I said hi. Bring me a plate. That's all I want. We never say congratulations. You ever see people, man, that are happy for other people? Oh God, you're awesome. Congratulations. You rock. We never say congratulations. What do we say? Oh, so now you think you're up bad or what? ¿Te crees muy chingón? We'll still kick your ass. Yeah, go to the Hallmark store and look for that card. Can I help you, sir? Yeah, you don't have a 19-year-old bad card? Liar, say swear to God. Swear to God. How about a you ain't shit balloon? You don't have one of those? Shit, you guys don't have nothing here. We need our own greeting cards. We need Mexicano greeting cards because the ones at the stores are too happy. We don't understand that. You need one that says, heard about your new job. You open it up. Don't fuck it up like the last time. We're tough from the time we're kids. You get that tough love. Little babies cry, the mothers run over. Oh my God, Caitlin, are you all right? Us. Mira, there he goes. Chille, chille, no me chingues el bebé. Hombre, let him cry, mija, let him cry. It's good for his lungs. Let him cry. Let him cry. Turn the music up. I don't need to hear this shit. Turn that music. Then they go pick you up. Don't pick him up. Don't pick him up. He's gonna get used to it. Don't pick him up. No, hombre, now you fucked him up. No, now he's gonna want you to hold him and change him. No, hombre. You may as well have another one because you messed that one up. Different people. We trick you into helping. We wait till you sit down. Ruben, what are you doing right now? Right now, I'm not doing nothing. Help me fix my truck. I gotta pull the transmission out and put a new one in. Oh, you mean right now, right now? Yeah. I can't do it right now, right now. When? Shit, probably later. Later. But not right now, right now. You should have told me before. Old school, we're always late. We're late because none of the clocks work in our houses. They all need batteries. The TV is the clock. It's always on. Grandma, when do you take your medicine? Cuando se acaba la Judge Judy, I take my pill. We don't have clocks in the house. All we have is calendars from every panaderia we've ever been to. On the walls, every wall. And it's the same picture, the Aztec dude and the dead lady. And your grandma doesn't want to take it down. That reminds me of me when I was young. Porque me gustaba pistear and they used to bring me home like that, barefoot, with a flower in my hair. Toda encuerada. I never had a water hose at my house that had the metal end. You know, it was always cut and cut. The minute it had a hole over here, they cut. Córtalo, cabrón. Pinche hose was this long. I wanted a nozzle. My grandfather like, you got a thumb, you got a nozzle, mira. How do I turn it off? Pinch it, mira, off, on. Chinga su madre, mira, pinch it, off, on. Pégale. Up.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this online class. Click present when I call your name. Jack? Okay. Peter? Okay. Charles?
Present.
Okay.
Let's listen to that.
So I know this is a bit unusual, but I really hope we can study well. I want us together to try to grab the knowledge from this class. I want us to grab class.
What did he just say?
The interdimensional black holes had particles that killed everything in the Big Bang. The black killed everything. Bang. If you have any questions, feel free to raise your hand and I will not see you. Radon is accumulates in places where ventilation is inadequate, such as in an underground mine, maybe build up inside, long-term exposure to high levels. Let me ask a question to Charles. What is the sixth noble gas? Answer by pressing the microphone.
Radon?
Good. Next thing I want to ask is, someone appears to have forgotten to turn off his microphone.
That was the last time I'm having Indian food.
Charles, I can feel that you're not listening. Can't see you, but I can feel it.
I am listening.
Oh yeah? What was I saying?
You're talking shit.
Okay, I'm kicking you out. Get out. I don't want you in my class. Are you out?
Yes.
Doesn't sound like it, but luckily, I know that I can trust you.
Yes.
I can see that all of you are online and listening, which is great. Let's move on. Fundamental idea in science, eloquently put forth by none other than the Nobel Prize-winning physicist Richard Feynman. Theory that we ever invented, the Big Bang theory, gravitational theory, automatic theory, are all models of...
I love online classes.
Okay, class, before the lesson ends, if you have any questions, please ask now.
Yeah, sir, I had a question regarding...
Forma-se neste momento a Rede Nacional de Rádio e Televisão para o pronunciamento do presidente da República, Jair Bolsonaro.
Boa noite. Desde quando resgatamos nossos irmãos em Wuhan, na China, numa operação coordenada pelos Ministérios da Defesa e Relações Exteriores, surgiu para nós o sinal amarelo. Começamos a nos preparar para enfrentar o coronavírus, pois sabíamos que mais cedo ou mais tarde ele chegaria ao Brasil. Nosso ministro da Saúde reuniu-se com quase todos os secretários de saúde dos estados para que o planejamento estratégico de enfrentamento ao vírus fosse construído. E desde então, o doutor Henrique Mandetta vem desempenhando um excelente trabalho de esclarecimento e preparação do SUS para atendimento de possíveis vítimas. Mas o que tínhamos que conter naquele momento era o pânico, a histeria e, ao mesmo tempo, traçar a estratégia para salvar vidas e evitar o desemprego em massa. Assim fizemos, quase contra tudo e contra todos. Grande parte dos meios de comunicação foram na contramão. Espalharam exatamente a sensação de pavor, tendo como carro-chefe o anúncio do grande número de vítimas na Itália. Um país com grande número de idosos e com um clima totalmente diferente do nosso. O cenário perfeito, potencializado pela mídia, para que uma verdadeira histeria se espalhasse pelo nosso país. Contudo, percebe-se que de ontem para hoje, parte da imprensa mudou o seu editorial. Pedem calma e tranquilidade. Isso é muito bom. Parabéns, imprensa brasileira. É essencial que o equilíbrio e a verdade prevaleçam entre nós. O vírus chegou, está sendo enfrentado por nós e brevemente passará. Nossa vida tem que continuar. Os empregos devem ser mantidos. O sustento das famílias deve ser preservado. Devemos, sim, voltar à normalidade. Algumas poucas autoridades, estaduais e municipais, devem abandonar o conceito de terra arrasada, a proibição de transportes, o fechamento de comércio e o confinamento em massa. O que se passa no mundo tem mostrado que o grupo de risco é o das pessoas acima dos 60 anos. Então, por que fechar escolas? Raros são os casos fatais de pessoas sãs com menos de 40 anos de idade. 90% de nós não teremos qualquer manifestação caso se contamine. Devemos sim ter extrema preocupação em não transmitir o vírus para os outros, em especial aos nossos queridos pais e avós, respeitando as orientações do Ministério da Saúde. No meu caso particular, pelo meu histórico de atleta, caso fosse contaminado pelo vírus, não precisaria me preocupar. Nada sentiria ou seria, quando muito, acometido de uma gripezinha ou resfriadinho, como bem disse aquele conhecido médico daquela conhecida televisão. Enquanto estou falando, o mundo busca um tratamento para a doença. O FDA americano e o Hospital Albert Einstein, em São Paulo, buscam a comprovação da eficácia da cloroquina no tratamento do Covid-19. Nosso governo tem recebido notícias positivas sobre esse remédio fabricado no Brasil, largamente utilizado no combate à malária, ao lúpus e à artrite. Acredito em Deus, que capacitará cientistas e pesquisadores do Brasil e do mundo na cura dessa doença. Aproveito para render minha homenagem a todos os profissionais de saúde, médicos, enfermeiros, técnicos e colaboradores, que na linha de frente nos recebem nos hospitais, nos tratam e nos confortam. Sem pânico ou histeria, como venho falando desde o princípio, venceremos o vírus e nos orgulharemos de estar vivendo nesse novo Brasil, que tem tudo, sim, tudo para ser uma grande nação. Estamos juntos, cada vez mais unidos. Deus abençoe nossa pátria querida.
Pátria amada, Brasil.
It is my privilege to be here this evening with Jack Ma, one of the great entrepreneurs of our time, of course, the founder of Alibaba. And we have so many things to talk about over the next half an hour. And of course, we also want to try to get to your questions as well. We're going to talk about Alibaba, of course, but also China, the Trump world that we all live in, globalization, trade, and so many other issues. But first of all, thank you, for joining us. Yeah. Let me start with this, which is to say that you just spent some time inside Trump Tower and went to go visit with Donald, our president-elect in the United States. Tell us about that meeting.
Well, it's a very productive meeting, much better than I thought, than I expected.
What did you expect?
Well, I heard a lot, and I watched, like everybody, I watched all the news and heard a lot about him. So when I go inside, I saw, anything that, but he's very sort of open-minded, listen what I talk. So I think I'm very happy about results. And finally, when he said, he said, Jack, let me walk you down. So it seems he's very happy about the results we had.
Can I ask, how does a meeting like that happen? Do you call him? Does he call you? Well, how does this take place?
Well, that's the question I'm asking myself. Because someday I got some requests from people say, Jack, do you want a meeting the president-elect? I say, is that true or not? Because I'm not ready for that. Because I don't know what to talk about. And then a few days later, I got another request. I got several requests, and then I saw one email with a friend. It's very sort of specific. I thought about it. I think, yes, maybe I should go and have a talk. And at least I think President-elect Donald Trump would be happy to hear what I want to talk about. So I went.
And what did you tell him?
Talk about the small business, talk about agricultural products, talk about the trade between China and the USA. We especially focus on telling about how can we bring the small business in America, sell them to China, to Asia, through our network, which can create a lot of jobs for them.
And you committed to create what you say is going to be 1 million jobs in the United States over the next 5 years.
Yeah.
Now, that's not 1 million jobs that Alibaba itself, but you're not hiring 1 million people.
No, we totally, Alibaba employee put together is like 45,000 people. We cannot hire 1 million. I cannot imagine I can manage 1 million people.
Explain to us how you think about the U.S.-China relationship, given some of the comments that Donald Trump has made about China being a currency manipulator. Did that come up during your meeting?
Well, I think first, in America, there's a freedom of speech, right? So he can say whatever he wants, and I respect, I understand. But of course, I have my views. We did not debate about the China-U.S. trade or manipulation. We did not debate. We did not talk. We agreed on something. Small business, developing the Midwest America, helping the farmers there, small business there, exporting to China. So we all agreed. But something that we did not discuss about the American the job losing to China, Mexico, and this. Can I share with you my ideas?
Please.
Yeah. First, I think 30 years ago, when I just graduated from universities, I heard America had a wonderful strategy. They outsource the manufacturing job, service jobs. They outsource the manufacturer to Mexico and China, outsource the service job to India. There's a book called The World is Flat.
Tom Friedman, colleague at the New York Times.
And I think it's a perfect strategy. You know, that the Americans said, we just want to control the IP, we just want technology, we just want the brand to leave the lower-end jobs for the world. Great strategy. And second is that the American international companies made millions and millions of dollars from globalization. The top 100 companies in America. Amazing. I remember when I graduated from university, I tried to buy a beeper, the Motorola beeper. Cost me $250. My pay at that time is $10 a month as a teacher. And the cost of making that beeper is only $8 for a chip.
Right.
So past 30 years, IBM, Cisco, Microsoft, they made tons of money. The profit they made are much more than the 4 largest banks in China put together, the China Mobile Phone, China Unicom, and whatever you name it, put together. Still, these multinational companies made more money than. So their market cap grew more than 100 times in the past 30 years. But where'd the money go? This is what I'm curious, because as a business people, I always care about the balance sheet. Where's the money coming? Where'd the money go? Past 30 years, the American had 13 wars, spending $14.2 trillion. The money going there. What if they spend a part of that money on building up the infrastructure, helping the white collars and blue collars? No matter how strategy good it is, you're supposed to spend money on your own people, right? Not everybody can pass Harvard. Like me, they're not good at education, right? We should spend money on those people who are not good at schooling. And the other money, which I'm curious about, is that when I was young, I heard America is about Ford and Boeing, those big manufacturing companies. Last 10, 20 years, I heard about is Silicon Valley and Wall Street. The money go to the Wall Street. And what happened? Year 2008. The financial crisis wiped out $19.2 trillion USA alone. They wiped out all the white collars and destroyed 34 million jobs globally. So what if the money is not Wall Street? What if the money spent on the Middle East, Middle West of the United States, developing the industry there? That could be changed a lot. So it's not the other countries steal jobs from you guys. It is your strategy.
Okay,
but you do not distribute the money and things in a proper way. This is what I.
And now we are having a backlash. And that backlash is a rebuke of globalization. And so much of the conversation, frankly, that we have here, and that backlash is happening in the United States. But I will say President Xi was here yesterday. You had lunch with him. And he was quoting Abraham Lincoln. What did you make of that?
Well, I would say that globalization is a great stuff. It's the USA, it's developed countries to teach us how to do globalization. I remember 2002 or 1 before China joined the WTO, everybody in China was worried. Me, I was worried. Because what if all the international products come to China, destroy our industry, and we have to lose a job? So convinced China, after 20 years, then you guys are say, this is a terrible thing. I believe globalization is good, but globalization needs to be improved. This is Donald Trump, President-elect, want to solve it, the problems. That globalization, I think, should be inclusive globalization. In the past 30 years, the globalization was controlled by 60,000 big companies. 100 years ago, globalization was controlled by several kings and emperors. What if next 30 years we can support 6 million business doing business across the board? What if in next 30 years we can help support 20 million small business can do business across the board? So this is something which I believe globalization should be inclusive.
And do you think that the words of President Xi will happen in reality, which is to say that China has largely acted on its own behalf for many, many years, and now is effectively saying that the U.S. needs to continue acting on everybody else's behalf?
Yeah, I think, the world needs some, it's such a, Mr. Xi yesterday said it's a wonderful time, it's a bad time, or the worst time. The world needs a new leadership, but the new leadership is about working together. This is what I understand. We do not necessarily need one specific leader to teach us what to do, what not to do. But the world have to partner together. This is what I think. And I think as a Chinese, as a business people, I feel proud for what President Xi said yesterday. As a business person, I want the world to share the prosperity together, to join the force together. As a Chinese, I'm happy about what he committed. Yesterday he said, he speaks like us, takes the responsibility of the second largest economy. As the China's second largest economy, he has to take some responsibility. This is the first time I heard a Chinese leader make number commitment. He said, next 10 years, we are going to import $8 trillion US. This make me feel excited because China is transforming from exporting to importing. If there's a concrete number, if we can fulfill it, this is going to be huge change to the China and to the world.
But don't you think that it's easier today for China to be interested in globalization because of the benefits that can accrue to China because you're continuing to develop than it is for countries that are, quote unquote, developed?
Well, first, the WTO rule is not designed by China. It's not made by China. I would say there's something that I want to change. The WTO is designed, a lot of rules designed for big companies in the past 30 years, and only big companies can do it. And China definitely benefit a lot from opening. I think China should learn one thing, that we grow in the past 30 years. It's because we open to the world. If we continue to open to the world,
not fully.
Okay.
An American business that wants to effectively go into business in China has a very difficult time, has to partner effectively with a company that's there already.
This is why I said China has problems too. The world has problems. And China definitely has a lot of problems. China should open, we should be more confident. This is what I feel yesterday. I feel the confidence of Mr. Xi that he is ready to open more to the world. This is what I suggest, that we should solve the problem by business community, by negotiation. WTO, China joined WTO for like 20 years or 70 years. I don't know the number. But the past 2 years, that I think we as a business, we as a country, we as the world, we have to review something.
Right.
But not because unbalanced things, we stop it.
You've been calling for something called EWTP.
Yeah.
What is that?
This is what I would talk about, is that the WTO was great, but they mainly designed for developed countries, big companies. There's no opportunity for small business. We want to build up a EW, Electronic World Trade Platform, to support young people, small business, thanks through mobile phones, internet, they can sell and buy across the board. And the other thing is that WTO is a very interesting organization. When you put the Doha round, when you put 200 government officers in one room, ask them to agree on something, it's impossible. I can never imagine that they can agree on something together. Business should be designed by business people. So we believe EWTP should be something that the business people sit down together, agree on something, negotiate on something, and get endorsement from the government.
I want to talk a little bit about Alibaba and the model itself, because I think for many in the West, if you will, they don't necessarily understand it. And to the extent that the extent that I could try to compare it to Amazon, which I know you think is an unfair comparison, one of the things that's so fascinating to me is that Amazon and Jeff Bezos have pursued what might be described as a very asset-heavy business model. They're buying airplanes. They want to own the entire supply chain from beginning to end. And Alibaba has effectively an asset-light business. It is very much, in terms of the retail piece of this, the opposite. You don't want to own the warehouses. You don't want to own the logistics companies. How do you think about that? Is Jeff Bezos right, or are you right? And is there going to be a meeting in the middle?
I hope both are right. And because the world can never have one model. If the world has only one correct model, the world is too boring. Right? We need to have all kinds of models. And the people who do the model should believe in the model. And I believe what I do. Right? The difference between Amazon and us. Amazon is more like an empire. Everything they should control themselves, buy and sell. And our philosophy is that we want to be an ecosystem. Our philosophy is to empower others to sell, empower others to service, empower making sure the other people are more powerful than us, making sure with our technology, our innovation, our partners, our 10 million small business sellers, they can compete with Microsoft, IBM. Our philosophy is that we think using internet technology, we can make every company become Amazon. Remember one thing, today for our sales, our GMV last year is more than 550 billion US dollars. To hire people deliver for us, we need 5 million people. So how can we hire 5 million people deliver things for us to deliver the things we sold? The only way we do is empower the service company, logistic companies, making sure they are efficient, making sure that they make the money, and making sure that they can hire more people.
But without owning the whole chain, can you do it as effectively? The idea that you're watching Amazon being able to deliver things now within hours, literally.
We made 125 cities deliver within 1 day last year. Imagine, 10 years ago, deliver one thing from Beijing to Hangzhou takes about 8 days. Now you can deliver things from Beijing to Inner Mongolia or some city within 12 hours. It's improving. You can never expect these things happen within 24 hours. We have patience. So I think, can you imagine that within the 11/11 Singles Day, we sold $17 billion, and by delivering more than 600 million packages within 3 days. This is happening, and this is what we feel proud of. It's not how much money we make. It's not how powerful we are. We think because of the technology, we can make the technology very inclusive, that every small companies can use it. This is my dream, because I started my first business in 1992 in China as a small business. In order to borrow money, 5,000 US dollars from bank, took me 3 months to acquire, still failed. So difficult to be a small business. Today, with the technology, we can empower them. This is something I want to do.
One of the critiques, as you know, and it continues to linger around Alibaba, is the piracy issue. There's an IP issue, and it's an issue all over China, but you take the brunt of a lot of it.
Yeah.
How much progress have you made in your mind, and how do you think about some of the regulatory bodies in other countries, including the US, that continue to criticize Alibaba for these issues?
First, when we start do this business, as a business like this size, you have to take all the criticism. You have to listen what is right, what is wrong. And second, as an e-commerce, when you put 10 million small business, empower them to sell. We do not like Amazon buy. We cannot check. Even you buy, when you buy $55 trillion or $550 billion, you cannot check every product. So the model itself and the e-commerce itself may have a lot of these flaws. And third, I would say in the past 17 years, we are the leader of this anti-privacy issues, the IP, protect the IP. But the second, we are internet companies. We do not have the law enforcement. We find this guy is selling cheap, fake products. We delete them. We cannot arrest them. But we made huge progress. Last year alone, we put 400 people into jails. We deleted 370 million fake products listing on our site. I would say we are the leaders, and we are using the big data to check who's buying, who's manufacturing, who's selling, what is the address. So now I'm happy about the whole world, especially China, all the government organization, start to realize the issues. So I would tell you, good thing is that today, when you go to those criminal group, which I call them criminals, those fake products, manufacturers, sellers.
You've praised the quality, though, of some of these.
I would talk about it later, all right? Those criminals said they can go anywhere but not Taobao and Tmall, because using our data, we trace where they are, who they are, what's the address, what the amount. And we will deliver this to the police station and working with them to arrest them. The quality issues is something I want to share with people. It's not about praising the fake products. I want to say that for so many years, those branded companies, you have to be very careful, because the fake products, their quality improving is scary. That is the difference between us. Because when you find guys, the thing that people said, this is fake. And you have to find people, you have to find a third-party institution to check it is fake or not. We find sometimes the quality is better. And I tell you, another thing is even scary. There's one branded company. He said, we are selling fake products. We check everything. There's nothing wrong. So we say, what is wrong? So we buy the products from his flag shop and deliver to them. They say, it's a fake. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
We buy things from the flag shop of this brand and deliver back. It's the fake products, they say. So it's a bit confusing. Right. This is fighting against the fake products. Is a war against the human greediness. It's not easy. You cannot finish it, but you have to continue to fight. And I want to say we put 2,000 people, 1 billion RMB every year fighting against that. It can never finish the war within 2 years. But I'm happy. Whether people criticize me, criticize us, the most important is that we are happy about the progress we made. Right. But if people praise me, so, when people say, Jack, you're wonderful, I know I'm not wonderful, right? Oh, Alibaba's great. We are not great. We are just a 17-year-old company. But when people say, you're doing nothing, no, we're doing a lot of things. But you don't have to argue. You don't have to debate. You do what you believe.
One of the things you mentioned was using big data on the piracy side, but the other thing that you're using a lot of that big data to do is provide credit and effectively banking the unbanked. And what's so fascinating to me, and I hope you'll share it, is we've talked about the Sesame credit. Yep. How you are able to use big data effectively to figure out who deserves credit and who doesn't in a marketplace where some of these people had no credit history before.
Okay. Well, before we do that, we had a system called Teach Computers to learn how to anti-fake products, teach the computers to learn how to, because we have Alipay, a lot of people try to use all the ways to cheating. So we teach the computer how to do that, the cheating things. So we've been doing that for 10 years. Until now, there's called artificial intelligence, because we've been doing that. We are a data company. 8 years ago, we said to ourselves, Alibaba should not be an e-commerce company. We should be a data company, because we have the data from consumers, we have data from the manufacturer, we have data from the logistic company and transactions. But we think how we can make a data really beneficiary to the society. What China needs is that we have a lot of great people. All the small business, they are very credible, but we don't have a credit system for them. So how can we use a credit rating system based on the data we have to giving everybody a Sesame rating system? That is so powerful in the past 4 years, because every individual, every small business, if they have been using our services, we give them a rating system. So we're giving loans in the past 5 years. We're giving 5 million business loans. They only borrow $5,000. 3 minutes, we can decide whether we should give you money, how much I'm going to give. Within 1 second, the money will be in your account. And 0 people touch, so we call it 310. And even today, the Sesame rating system become people dating. The mother-in-law want to say, hey, you want to dating with my daughter? Show me your rating system of the Sesame card. So it's so funny. We go to people want to rent a car, people want to rent a bicycle. They will say, show me your Sesame cards. Good. Because if they do not pay back, if they do not fulfill, the rating system is going to low down, and they can never rent a house. This is what we want to build up, the system. That if you sell or buy fake products, the Sesame cars will show.
I'm going to open up to questions, but a final one from me. There's been a lot of speculation that you're going to get into the business of Hollywood. Your name has appeared, Alibaba Group, at the beginning of a couple of big films recently. What is the ambition for Alibaba in the entertainment world?
The beginning was like this. Several years, every 5 years, we have a review for our strategy. Now, our strategy is always to look at the 30 years and 10 years. And every strategic decisions we make, we have to ask one question. Is this decision we made solve society problem? Because we believe the bigger social problem you solve, the more successful you are. So if we do this cannot solve any social problems, we don't do it. Second, is this project is going to be successful in 10 years? If it's going to be successful in 10 years, let's do it. If it's going to be successful in 1 year or 1 month, normally I would say, forget about it. Because why you can be successful in 1 year or 1 month? So we all have to put pen on. And 5 years ago, we had a big debate about 10 years later, 20 years, what are the things that China society and the world want? So we say happiness and health. 2H strategy. So happiness and health. We believe Hollywood, the movie industry, bring people happy. Because today, nobody's happy. Rich people not happy, poor people not happy, At least when I watch a movie, I feel happy about it, right? So I think we should partner with the Hollywood, especially like a lot of, we have a different way of living. In China, the movie, we have a lot of heroes. But China movies, heroes always dead. The American movie hero never die. If all the heroes die, who want to be the hero? So my movie, I want to make the hero live. Right, so this is, I think we should learn a lot. And it's only about 2 years, so we have another 8 years to go. I want to make our company that it's not e-commerce. It's something that giving people inspirations. Giving people, because I learn a lot. For example, I always say that my favorite movie, Forrest Gump. Life's tough. This is I learned, and that inspired me. That is why when people call me crazy, stupid in the past 17 years, you're crazy, you're doing something never work. You're stupid, how can you do that model? Amazon this model, eBay this model, why Alibaba this model? I told myself, Forrest Gump said, go ahead. Never care about what the other people. And the other thing, Forrest Gump said, nobody make money out of the catching whales. People make money by catching shrimps. So we serve small business.
Fair enough. Jack Ma, we should probably end it there because we're going to run out of time, but I thank you. Thank you so much for the conversation. I promised we'd sneak in a question or two, and we literally have 2 minutes, and they're going to get upset with me. If you have a question, and we're going to, I got to beg you to do it within literally, a second. So go for it right there.
Okay, I'm not going to say that China and the US is going to have a trade war, but if the Trump administration gets tougher on China in terms of trade agreement, is that going to hurt Alibaba?
Well, I don't think so. I think China and the US should never have a trade war. We'll never have a trade war. And I think we should give President-elect Donald Trump some time. And he's open-minded. He's listening. And I think the war, it's so easy to launch a war. But it's so difficult, almost impossible sometimes to terminate a war. Iraq war, Afghanistan war, is that finished? No. Trade war. I believe one thing. When trade stops, the war starts. Trade is something that people start to communicate. Trade is something people exchange culture and value. And I will be happy if China and USA agree on something and Alibaba business model destroyed. I would destroy Alibaba model by stopping the war between. Because how can you imagine the first largest economy of the world, second largest economy of the world, have a trade war? It's going to be a disaster for two countries and for the world. If anybody can do something to stop it, do anything to stop it.
Did you have a reaction to Trump and the situation with Taiwan and how he's thinking about that?
Well, Taiwan, I think this is not something about government. This is not something about business. This is something about people. If the Taiwan issue is the population, if you do Taiwan issue, it's like against 1.4 billion people. So this is another issue. So we're talking about trade, we're not talking about Taiwan.
Very politic. Let's take one final question if we can. I think we can steal one more in. Yes, sir, right there.
I'm not a politician. I try to speak like
me,
this.
a credit store. How do you assure you are not messing up with people's life and you are not dictating the whole, credit kingdom or the system? Because now you are the decision makers, you are the rule makers.
Okay. First, I'm not sure. People say, oh, this is uncertain world. Every day is uncertain. The only certain day was yesterday. I'm not sure about that in the future I would dictate, I would be stupid. That's why I should retire early when I'm young. That is why I have a lot of things that I dream I want to do. I want to do philanthropy, I want to be a teacher, I want to go back to school, I want to do the environment. And the world is so wonderful. Why should I be the CEO of Alibaba all the time? I'm coming to this world not to work. I want to come to this world to enjoy my life. I don't want to die in my office. I want to die on the beaches.
It's a wonderful message. Jack Ma, thank you for the conversation.
Well, can I say one last thing?
Yes, please, please.
I just want to give my last advice to any people here that every government should pay attention to in the next 30 years are critical for the world. Every revolution, technology revolution takes about 50 years. The first 20 years, technology company. Next 30 years, the implication of the technology. Focus on next 30 years. The first 20 years, eBay, Amazon, Facebook, Alibaba, Google, good. The most important is that make the technology inclusive, make the world change. This is 30 years. Next, pay attention to those people who are 30 years old, because those are internet generation. They will change the world. They are the builder of the world. Third, that let's pay attention to the company who have fewer than 30 employees. So 30 years and 30 years old and 30 employees. That can make the world much better.
Jack Ma, thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.